This video was sponsored by Dashlane, and I have a cold. I have to admit, this episode has quite the promising concept. I've always had a soft spot for Who episodes that revive the most important people in history. Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison are two such worthy people, and just from a Wikipedia scan, I was able to determine the pair's rivalry has potential for a great story. But did it hold up? Did I get my hopes up prematurely? I mean, it can't be worse than Orphan 55, can it? Frustrating and boring experiences like Orphan 55 are a thing of the past when you install Dashlane, a digital password and wallet manager. Benny and his wife reported peace of mind when making their internet a one-click experience. Never again will they need to remember that overly long password of theirs or spend ages filling out personal and payment information on online forms. With the app's unique password generator, you'll never get an awkward situation like this.
Somebody hacked the system.
Dashlane has a built-in VPN with over 25 different locations. The best part, there's no credit card required when you sign up. If you want to support the channel and get some awesome software, download Dashlane for free on your device today by clicking on the link below, where you'll receive a 30-day trial of Dashlane Premium. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. I think the best part of this story is undoubtedly the opening first act. I loved that it wasn't primarily focused on the gang, and we got to understand the character of Nikola Tesla and how he fits into an underdog narrative. Even the special effects look nice. Him giving a talk at Niagara Falls makes sense in the context of the story and doesn't look awful either. Just from him showing off his magical machine to investors shows he's ambitious yet downtrodden by the greed of enterprise and capitalism. It almost seemed like a very human tale was in the making. Even the alien concepts were kept on the down low here thanks to the introduction of this green orb. I thought it was a shame our scenario jumped rather suddenly from the Doctor bumping into Tesla and his friend Dorothy Skerritt to being on a train where all her companions are waiting for them. Did the three of them jump onto a moving train then? That certainly would be the perfect getaway vehicle for this era, but it just felt a bit cheap that we didn't see anybody board it. As established in previous reviews, however, journeys of significance like this are just conveniently swept under the rug. The action picks up again as our characters get pursued through the train. It feels inspired by early films like The Great Train Robbery, made 5 years before the setting of this very episode, and the Star Wars-esque lightning from the hands fitted with the electrical tone of the story. The most interesting aspect of all is this bargain that's struck between Tesla and the gang. He has his green mystery orb and won't hand it over, with the Doctor insisting she'll keep her eyes on him until she finds out what he's hiding. It makes the gang feel more interventionist, alongside a genuine reason for our characters to be tagging along with Tesla and a mystery to be uncovered. What a treat! This setup to New York was nice as well. Just like in 2007, it doesn't exactly look like New York, but the transition from establishing shot to street view was really smooth, so I'm willing to give it a pass. I'm also really happy the casting team selected a Croatian-American actor Goran Visnik to play Tesla, as befits the character's nationality. The makeup and costume looked great on him, and I felt genuinely convinced by his performance throughout. The story toys a little with his nationality, which also tied into the passing of an Immigration Act in 1907 that aimed to reduce the amount of immigrants coming into the United States. Inside the lab, we get some nice dialogue exchanged between the Doctor and Tesla about being inventors. I just wish the Doctor had invented some more things throughout the series, so this bit could be a bit more emotionally engaging. Then the story introduces Thomas Edison, who you've heard of. His introduction is ruined though by the Doctor's bizarre interruption of his speech. It feels so predictable at this point that the first thing she would do is hurl sarcasm and accusations at him. The moment I heard her voice and the way everyone bizarrely makes way for her was when I groaned for the first time in the story. I honestly wished more time had been dedicated to him as a character, as he seems to mostly be this caricature of business tycoons that we've become accustomed to in this era of the show. I'll give a point to this sign here showing his pompous nature, but his representation in this episode is more like a verbal punching bag for our characters to have jabs at than anything else. The reverse goes for Tesla, whose flaws are forgiven because it's easier to paint two characters as good and bad than making them complex and interesting. Unfortunately, things get a little annoying because they've got to introduce the aliens at some point, right? I can understand the temptation to use aliens in this story. After all, he believed he was receiving signals from other planets, but in this story they feel so out of place. They had racism as the antagonist in the Rosa Parks episode, a move I considered to be to the show's benefit. I don't mind them essentially kidnapping Tesla to fix their ship up, at least it's not universe domination, but that that kind of is all it really amounts to, just fixing their ship. The episode has the most pointless moment as well, where a couple of workers are complaining to each other about coils, then one orders the other to go over there before they all get killed. I don't know if this was meant to show the working conditions of the company, but it really seemed like a hollow moment to me. Up until this point, the human aspects of the story were paramount, and now here, human life is shown to be totally valueless. What happens after the Doctor finds the bodies? Nice lab, Tommy. And the red eyes look awful. Showing the red eyes added nothing but unintentional humor to me. Whenever I saw them in the story, I cringed so hard. The group initially stopped this whelp with a desk, which was really stupid. They have the capacity to kill lots of people in one go, but this one thought to just lunge over the desk. Then the same buggers managed to make their way into Tesla's lab, and one of them has this gun that just looks like it's made out of paper. Then the Scorpion Queen makes her first appearance. The Empress of the Rachnos kind of sprang to mind, but of course this is comparatively underwhelming. Where the Empress looked gigantic and insane, this just looks cheap and uninspired. All the fucking spiders from last year have been remodeled into the red-spotted alien scorpions as well, and I just thought, great, here we go. The nosedive in quality begins. In the TARDIS, the Doctor begins her search for Tesla and Yaz, who've been captured. She says that high-speed inventing is her specialty, which I was really curious to hear more about. But for some reason, we need to get Tesla's unimportant female friend's take on all this with a bit of reassurance from Ryan. It's moments like this where the pacing grinds to a halt for pointless dialogue that makes the episodes a total chore to watch. When they get to Wardenclyffe Tower as well, Graham starts barking on about how he had a supervisor like Edison giving him the shutdown, and the conversation ends with him smiling like he's done a fantastic job. You've established nothing new. He is big bad business Donald Trump man and is therefore not worth exploring further because we already have a big alien lined up for our protagonists to fight off instead. Honestly, things started toward the mend when Tesla started putting up a fight and even Yaz got threatened with death, only to cut back to the Doctor, and it was here I knew that there was some cop-out brewing. Even when the scene returns to Yaz, there's a bunch of humanoids closing in on her. Why do they need to be in disguise when back on their ship? Because unfortunately the BBC budget can only afford one Scorpion outfit apparently, and then they start shooting lasers out of their tails? Good lord, these scenes on the ship just got worse by the second. One minute the Queen is insisting the Doctor assists Tesla, the next she doesn't see a need for her. Tesla rightfully assumed he wouldn't be getting a signal back from space, and yet Yaz is like,
seriously?
There is no difference between this and last week's snide remark.
What is wrong with you?
Flash photography saves the day, which I'm guessing was altered for epileptic members of the audience because we see grey flashes, which distracted me somewhat, so I guess I can kind of justify it being a good enough reason to distract these aliens. Then things just delve into silliness, and I'm not going to indulge too much because it's too much of a headache going over all this again. The Doctor sets out this heist-like plan that doesn't have any obstacles or issues at all. I liked that Edison convinced everyone to stay inside, acting as the voice of propaganda, but when the Scorpions come along, it's not exactly like they're proving to be truly menacing in any way. They firstly intimidate this little boy who gets rescued by the screams of Yaz, and then we see them in their true forms, and they're just rolling all over each other and are stopped by a bread stand, for fuck's sake. Then Yaz finds a tunnel that takes her and Edison back to Rhode Island? Wasn't he complimenting the Doctor's machine for taking this exact trip that they made in just as little time earlier in the episode? How did she know this would be here? This is just ridiculous. Then, when we're all back together, waiting to face the alien invasion, they're all standing around chit-chatting. The music in this episode is just the worst as well. I don't normally comment on it because it's just serviceable most of the time. And then whenever this Queen showed up, we got sounds like this. She's not scary at all. You can't insist on it by throwing shrill violins at us. And then what do we get? More standing around talking. They zap the Queen back up and zap the ship, and there's nothing we can do about Tesla's bankruptcy, so it's time to move on to the next episode, guys. What? Did that sound like me just describing the plot? Well, that's because the ending is so rushed that I can't even conjure an opinion about it. So, did it suck? Overall, yeah, sorry for all of you that liked it, but this is just another Spyfall situation for me. There are some great ideas floating around in these episodes, but it's just dragged down by yet more of the usual problems this series has. Idle conversations, empty protagonists, bar Tesla of course, and underwhelming antagonists. The episode has a great opener with the occasional bit of impressive special effects and pays homage to the era the episode was set in. It's just these pointless aliens that are the dominant issue here. They're unimpressive, uninspired, and feel completely unnecessary. A great story could have been told without them, but because they derail it so hard, it's difficult to let a story about human beings come to life. I give Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror a 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Great news, we passed 50 patrons. This means that patrons will get an exclusive Did It Suck review of the Doctor Who episode Father's Day. If we can get 50, I know we can get 100. And then Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel mega review. What did you think of Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror? Comment below or join us for a chinwag on my Discord server, where we'll continue this discussion.